Here's what we're doing. One is we have arrest warrants out for all of them. If there are some in Texas, which I understand that there may be, the Texas Department of Public Safety is searching for them. We'll find them and we'll arrest them and take them to the Texas Capitol. Those who are out of state think that they are beyond the reach of Texas law enforcement and that they may or may not be. But for one, when they come back, they're not going to go to their cozy home. They will be arrested and taken to the Capitol. But know this, it's my understanding that the FBI is going to search for these derelict Texas House members in whatever state they may be in and help identify for them and maybe work with us to bring them back.
It's official, gang. The fleeing Texas Democrats are now wanted fugitives on the FBI list. You cannot make this stuff up. The FBI is now actively hunting down Texas Democrats who fled the state. Now, at the same time, we now have the ultra-notorious George Soros under investigation for his role in funding these little runaways. And a new Democrat bribery scandal is exploding as we speak. But what we're going to find is that this is about so much more than Texas Democrat desperation. This is ultimately about Trump and the Republicans officially and permanently crushing the Democrat Party. That is not hyperbole. I am going to show you in this live stream exactly how we are talking about the literal death, the end of the oldest political party in American politics. And it's actually happening right before our very eyes. I got the stats. This is going to absolutely blow your mind. Greetings, everyone. It is Live Stream Friday. I am your host, Dr. Steve. You're a Patriot Professor, here to help you make sense of the madness as the radical left desperately tries to stop the unstoppable, the inevitable rise of a new conservative age all over the world. So if you want a front row seat on how you are changing the world in ways you never even imagined, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You are not going to want to miss a single episode. As always, we got a jam-packed show for you today. Our super chats are up, so feel free to send in your comments or questions. It'd be my privilege to read them and answer them during this live stream. Also, do you remember Biden's debate disaster when he blurted out, we finally beat Medicare? Well, it's true. As Trump said, you beat it to death. Medicare touches the lives of millions of Americans, but like just about everything the government touches, it's a mess. And mistakes can cost you thousands. Between confusing rules and penalties and thousands of different plans, it's no wonder so many people are spending more than what they need to because they're stuck with the wrong plan. That's why I want to introduce you to a genuinely helpful company called Chapter. Chapter gives you personalized Medicare advice, and they actually work for you, not the government, not big insurance. They search every plan available, even those that other agents skipped. And by doing this, they save people an average of $1,100 per year, and sometimes more. In fact, Chapter was able to save one couple, Joe and his wife, $3,000 every year. Chapter's advice is completely free to my audience. No fees, no pressure, just honest help. So if you're already on Medicare or about to be, I cannot recommend Chapter enough. Give them a call at 919-727-1903 to make sure your Medicare works for you. Most people wish they had called them sooner. Again, that's 919-727-1903. It's long been recognized by both ancients and moderns alike that once great political movements eventually and inevitably fall. They collapse into dust. And what's so interesting is that you can actually see that decline. You could see the collapse coming from a distance. So before Alaric and the Visigoths sacked Rome back in 410 AD, for decades leading up to that, a number of contemporary writers observed that Rome was in the process of self-destruction, of basically keeling over, of degenerating politically, economically, morally. St. Augustine wrote his epic work, The City of God, dedicated to precisely that, detailing how Rome's fall was inevitable given the societal rot from within. Or long before Sultan Mehmed of the Ottoman Empire conquered Constantinople in 1453, it had already been, in many respects, conquered a century before that by the degenerating forces of political and economic stagnation and decline. Once great political powers often, eventually, and inevitably fall. And you and I are witnessing in real time a contrast between a new political movement that is rising, that is dawning, that is just beginning to blossom to life. That's the MAGA movement. And one that has reached its end. One that is, all signs show, indeed in the process of collapsing. We are right now, make no mistake, we are watching the oldest American political party basically die. It's collapsing. It's imploding. It's collapsing economically, right? The Democrat Party right now is basically bankrupt. The chief fundraising arm of the Democrat Party, Act Blue, which raised tens of billions of dollars for the party, they're now on the verge of going completely defunct. As it turns out, the doging of USAID cut off the Democrats from their gravy train, from the major source of their funding. And as a result, the DNC, again, right now as we speak, is having to go into debt just to keep their lights on. But it's not just their financial demise. The Democrats are collapsing politically as well as economically. So after 4 years of being led by a dementia-enabled auto pen, together with a cackling hyena who was so politically pathetic, she had to be appointed the candidate since she never won a single presidential primary in her life. After 4 years of that, the Democrats suffered their single worst national defeat in modern political history. They lost the popular vote. They lost the electoral vote. They lost every single swing state, all 7. Not even Obama was able to do that. They lost the House. They lost the Senate. They lost the majority of governorships and state legislatures. And they are currently polling at their lowest approval level ever. Again, that's not hyperbole. Ever since congressional approval rating and party approval rating has been measured, they are at their lowest. The latest Quinnipiac poll has the Democrats collapsing to just 19% approval. They're stuck in an 80-20 doom loop where they're trapped in doubling down on the single most unpopular political issues in the nation, with bona fide communists like Mamdani in New York and the Somalian socialists in Minneapolis, the new faces of this dying party. So they're dying economically, they're dying politically, and now, perhaps most dramatically of them all, they are collapsing demographically. The rigged population numbers that they've been peddling and the racially segregated gerrymandered districts that have both combined to artificially keep the Democrats in federal political power are now coming to a colossal and catastrophic end. And nowhere is that apocalyptic collapse appearing more than in the great state of Texas. As you know, over 50 Texas Democrats this week literally ran away. They ran away. They fled their state, and they're currently hiding out in Illinois in a desperate and unanimously recognized futile effort to stop Republicans from redrawing Texas's congressional map and giving the GOP 5 more House seats for the 2026 midterms. It's a great firewall for Mike Johnson. It's going to make it very hard for Democrats to win back the House just with what Texas is doing alone. The Texas legislature wasted no time in issuing arrest warrants for every single one of these runaway Democrats. And now it is official. Texas Senator John Cornyn just announced that FBI Director Kash Patel has approved federal assistance to track down and arrest these runaway Democrats. Governor Abbott confirmed there is literally a dragnet underway, saying that Texas and the FBI are together tracking down these derelict Democrats. They will be brought directly to the Texas Capitol, and each one will be arrested. It's not a matter of if, it's only a matter of when. So as we speak, these 50-plus Democrats are being literally hunted down by the FBI like fugitives. So now we have Governor Greg Abbott, we've got Attorney General Ken Paxton, and now the FBI all making sure there are very severe consequences for abandoning your democratic duty to Texas voters. Again, if you think about it, just the irony in all of this is beyond parody. The very party that brands itself as the protector of democracy, with the full greenlighting of the legacy media, amplifying and parroting that brand, that very party, the protectors and guardians of democracy, are right now, as we speak, deliberately thwarting the democratic process by running away from the very legislature they were elected by the people to serve in. It's so patently, obviously cringe that even Stephen Colbert, the king of cringe, the now canceled late night clown, even Colbert this week confronted Illinois Governor Pritzker, who has his own moon orbiting him, that Illinois is the last state in the union that has any leg to stand on when it comes to congressional gerrymandering, in that they are the single most gerrymandered state in the nation. Even Colbert is saying that out loud. Again, you can't make this stuff up. Nobody is buying this stunt. Even Democrats see it as reeking of total and complete and pathetic desperation. It is an optics nightmare for them. And now it gets even worse. Guess whose tentacles have been found to be behind this latest stunt, this latest ridiculous Democrat stunt? Can you say George Soros? I mean, I guess vampires don't technically sleep, do they? I mean, this guy has his fangs in literally everything. Oh, my heavens. Attorney General Ken Paxton has announced he is launching 2 separate investigations that are about to blow the scandal wide open. We talked about the first one yesterday in our video on the latest here in Texas. So he's investigating Beto O'Rourke's group, a group called Powered by People. More like Powered by Pot, I think, but Powered by People. He's being investigated for what Paxton is calling an illegal financial influence scheme to bribe these runaway Democrats. He's calling it the Beto bribe, right? So Paxton literally saying he's going after any Democrat coward breaking the law by taking a Beto bribe. But now he just announced that he's launched a second investigation into the George Soros-backed Texas Majority PAC. Yeah, good luck on that. Texas Majority PAC, for illegal fundraising and bribery of Texas House members. So this billionaire foreign puppet master is literally once again funding the destruction of democracy from the shadows. We talked last week about how Soros has been exposed as being at the center of the Russian collusion hoax, right? We now have a smoking guy. And again, the legacy media doesn't give a rip about it. You notice that? The legacy media doesn't give a... Can you imagine like a far-right foreign billionaire getting involved in some scheme to bring down Obama? They would be fixated over this thing. But George Soros? What? There's nothing new here. There's nothing new to see here. We now have a smoking gun email from the head of Soros's Open Society Foundations openly discussing their plan with the then Democrat National Committee chairwoman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, to tie President Trump to Russia in an admitted hoax as a way to distract voters from Hillary Clinton's email service scandal. And he even said that the FBI would eventually get involved in it. So Soros literally spins his web into everything, completely interfering and attempting to thwart the democratic process at every level. But this time, Soros really seems to have messed with the wrong crowd. Seems to have stepped in it, because now he's about to face Law and Order Texas style, and Texas don't fool around. But as I just alluded to, these two investigations on Beto and Soros are all part of a massive Democrat bribery scandal that is now exploding as we speak. Here again is Texas Governor Greg Abbott.
Democrats, they have received money and benefits at their request to support them while they are gone. It is a direct violation of the Texas Constitution as well as Texas bribery laws for them to receive a benefit to skip a vote. They could be charged with second-degree felony for committing bribery in the state of Texas.
So Governor Abbott has made it absolutely clear here, any Texas Democrat who accepts money to cover their daily $500 fines for abandoning their legislative duties will be charged with committing bribery under state law. If any lawmaker took money to perform or to refuse to perform an act in the legislature, that is officially a felony bribe. We are now getting word that Senator John Cornyn has officially requested FBI Director Kash Patel to not only find and arrest these Democrats, but also investigate them for potential bribery and public corruption offenses. So not only is the FBI assisting Texas law enforcement in capturing and arresting these Democrats, but now they're apparently even assisting the Texas Attorney General in this investigation into freaking bribery. So this goes way beyond simply skipping legislature here. It's all about potentially criminal behavior to obstruct the Democrat process and getting bribed to do it. Second-degree felony bribery charges. And then, of course, every single one of them will be removed from office. They will be vacated. Their seats will be vacated. And they will face federal prosecution. I mean, you have to let this hit you. Over 50 lawmakers are now under investigation for what could be the largest legislative corruption scandal in Texas history. The FBI involvement proved this has escalated far beyond political theater into serious criminal territory. I think they are about to learn the lesson of FAFO. I should know it. Well, FAFO, right? F around and find out. And to make matters even worse, as Governor Abbott is seeking to have these Democrats removed from their seats, and that they deliberately vacated those seats upon their skipping town and disrupting the Democratic legislative process, Abbott is now going for the jugular. He is now, get this is the latest. This just came literally hours ago. Governor Abbott is now threatening to redistrict 8 seats for the GOP if the Democrat lawmakers do not return to Texas immediately. I mean, forget 5 seats pickup. Now we're talking 8. I want 10. I want every Democrat out. And by the way, Abbott isn't alone. Here is Texas State Representative Brian Harrison on doing just this.
Every 1 week the Democrats are gone, one more Republican seat gets added to the map. So if they're gone 1 week, instead of our new maps having 5 more Republican seats, they're going to have 6. Democrats gone 2 weeks. Well, we went from +5 to +7. It's time to play hardball. I'm sick of the Democrats fighting harder for the future of Texas than Texas Republicans are. Let's change that. Let's get this going. For every week they're gone, let's amend the map. 1 more Republican seat. Let me know what you think. Talk to y'all soon.
I can tell you exactly what I bet I could speak on behalf of all of us. Sounds great. Let's just assume they're gone for years. I mean, honestly, I think we're at a point where the Democrat Party is at such political and moral demise that every single red state in the nation should gerrymander every remaining blue seat into oblivion. You know, we talked about I think it was just yesterday. The Supreme Court's already given the green light on that. The Supreme Court settled this debate back in 2019 in a landmark case called Rucho versus Common Cause. And Chief Justice John Roberts wrote that partisan gerrymandering is allowed. It goes, now again, it cannot be racial. We'll get into that in a moment. It can't be racially specific. But if the party in power wants to gerrymander in such a way so as to guarantee they'll remain in power in perpetuity, that's their deal. You shouldn't have elected them. States can draw their districts however they want, and federal judges cannot stop them. This is not a judicial issue. It is a legislative and democratic issue. So that decision didn't just give Texas the green light. It opened the floodgates for every state to redraw their maps. And guess what? It looks like Republicans are now finally fighting fire with fire. More and more red states are openly saying it is time to render the Democrat Party the dodo bird. In red states, it is time to render the Democrat Party extinct. And ironically, it looks like it is indeed the Supreme Court that's about to step in and help those red states do precisely that. Wait until you see this. But first, gang, if you are just joining us, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. I'm sure you got a lot to say. Let us know what you think. You could do it in 2 ways. You could either send us a super chat, or you could just click on that link below and join our Courageous Patriot Club, where for just 1 monthly fee, I'll feature your comments in our broadcast, and you can ask me as many questions as you like. I'll be happy to answer them right here, right now in this live stream, whatever works for you, either through our super chats or through joining our Courageous Patriots Club. Also, if you're a homeowner like me, you do need to take a listen to this. When was the last time you checked on your home title? That's the legal proof. It's the only legal proof, as I understand, that you own your home. When's the last time you do it? Well, if you're like me, the answer is never. But the problem is, in today's AI and cyber world, scammers are stealing home titles, and your equity is the target. And the way it works is so sinister. Criminals forge your signature on one document, then they use a fake notary stamp. They pay a small fee with your county, and boom, your home title has been transferred out of your name. Then they take out loans and use your equity, or they even sell your property. I mean, you won't even know it's happened until months later, until you get a collection notice or foreclosure notice. So that's why you need to just stop what you're doing right now, protect yourself and your loved ones, and click on the link below and find out today if you've already been a victim. Use promo code TurleyTalks at HometitleLock.com to make sure your title is still in your name. You also get a free title history report, plus a free 14-day trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud should happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. So go to HometitleLock.com right now. Don't waste any time. You can still listen to this live stream, no problem. Just click on the link. It'll open up in a different window there. Use promo code TurleyTalks. It's all one word. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code TurleyTalks, and secure your home right now today. All right. As I'm sure many of you know, Trump posted just the other day on Truth Social that he has instructed the Department of Commerce to immediately begin work on a new, highly accurate census based on modern-day facts and, importantly, using results from the 2024 presidential election. The kicker in all of this, what has the Democrats absolutely weeping and gnashing their teeth? People, and this should tell you everything, this is what the Democrats weep and gnash their teeth over. People in our country illegally will not be counted in the census, unlike what happened in 2020. And that is the game changer. For decades, Democrats have been running the most sophisticated election rigging scheme in American history, since at least the 1980s. They deliberately opened our southern border. They allowed tens of millions of third world invaders into the country, shoved them into racially gerrymandered districts and sanctuary states, then fought tooth and nail to count every single illegal alien in the national census. Now, why would they do that? Is it because of democracy? No, they can't vote. Why would they do that? Well, they're not supposed to be able to vote. Because census data determines how many House seats and Electoral College votes each state gets. Now, we have talked about this ad nauseum on this channel. What are the key trends that scholars have been quite fixated on over the last 2 decades is how red states and conservative populations are growing demographically because conservative, particularly conservative religionists, are having kids, whereas blue state populations and liberal demographics have been increasingly shrinking because liberals have largely stopped having kids. And kids born to conservatives, about 80% stay conservative and get more conservative as they age into adulthood. So what we've been seeing is red states have, I believe, somewhere upwards of a 30% fertility disadvantage over and against blue states. Blue states have been shrinking, red states have been growing, so that by 2030, it was estimated that the political power would inevitably shift over to red states by virtue of the Electoral College and proportionate representation. So how are blue states going to stave that off? Well, they opened up the southern borders. Bottom line. That's why they opened the southern borders. That's why Europe is importing Northern Africans and Middle Easterners. By counting illegals here in the States, California, New York, Illinois, they've all been artificially inflating their political power while real Americans get diluted representation. Stephen Miller explained it perfectly on Hannity the other night. He said that at least 20 to 30 House Democrat seats would not exist but for illegal aliens being counted in the census. And he's right. Democrats rigged the 2020 census by including illegal aliens, and they sued Trump when he tried to stop it in his first term. But of course, Trump isn't just fixing the census. At the same time, he's overseeing the single most dramatic political redistricting effort in our nation's history. He's supporting Texas Republicans. We're redrawing the congressional map now to give at least 5 seats. Hopefully at the end of it, I would love to see 8 to 10. Just make it really hurt. But it's not just Texas. Now, Florida Governor DeSantis is following suit. He has now just said Florida got cheated out of at least 1 seat in the last census, and they're looking to add anywhere from 4 to 5 new GOP seats for the midterms. Texas and Florida are not alone. Indiana's in the process of adding 2 more GOP seats. It has been confirmed that J.D. Vance did fly out and met with Indiana Republican officials, and they have agreed they're going to redistrict. Ohio, they have to, by law, They are adding 2 to 3 more GOP seats. By law, they're required to redistrict. Missouri appears to be adding 1. Nebraska is looking to be adding 1. But it gets worse for the Democrats. It's not just all of these red states now that are playing hardball, ready to win these midterms just by redistricting allocations. Now the Supreme Court is about to strike down the VRA. We reported on this earlier this week, the Voting Rights Act. Now, it's not the Voting Rights Act per se. It's the way it has been exploited by Democrats to gerrymander racially specific districts. So these are districts that were drawn up using the ridiculous notion of what's called voter dilution that a 1986 Supreme Court decision accepted. And it was the Democrat argument that minority populations were being politically disenfranchised by virtue of too many whites. And they weren't able to vote for the politicians that they want. So they convinced the Supreme Court to allow them to gerrymander districts that were what we call majority minority districts. So these are districts that were drawn up to intentionally and deliberately exclude whites from the voting district. Yeah, again, I know you can't make this stuff. Now, they will wax eloquent for hours on how that's racial justice and that's social justice and blah, 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 blah. And they are, well, they're not blind. They see it, but of course they want political power, and this is their ticket to political power. But at least they act completely blind to the notion it is just reverse discrimination. Just reverse it the other way. Imagine white districts deliberately drawing themselves up so as to exclude non-whites. And in the process, since the 1980s, Democrats drawn up literally dozens upon dozens of racially segregated districts. Well, the Supreme Court is about to shoot that down. It is the golden age, after all. The Supreme Court is about to, they're about to Roe v. Wade that thing. And if you combine Trump's new census excluding illegals, if you combine all the redistricting that's already happening in red states, and then you add on top of that the Supreme Court potentially overturning racial gerrymandering, gang, Democrats stand to lose in all of that upwards of approximately 42 seats in the House of Representatives. Are you sitting down? Maybe I should have told you to sit down before you heard that. They are on course to lose upwards of 42 seats in the House. We're talking now new solid red seats in South Carolina, Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Kentucky, Georgia, Tennessee. All of a sudden, literally, the redistricting floodgates would open up and the Democrats would be permanently swept away, at least when it comes to the South and the Midwest. It would be, in terms of the congressional map, it would be solid red with no blue splashes, splashes anywhere. The Republicans, if that is the case, because right now with Texas redistricting, the Republicans would be sitting pretty solid, safe seats at 2017. They only need to win one more seat among contested seats, among the 40-plus contested seats. That's it. You just have to win one, and you've retained the majority of 2018. But with the full redistricting, with a new census, and with the Supreme Court stepping in and reversing VRA, the Republicans would be operating with a baseline, a more or less guaranteed baseline of around 240 seats in perpetuity. The Democrats would be permanently locked out of congressional power for the rest of this, for generations. So the Democrats lose 42 seats, while at the same time Republicans also gain those seats. So we're not talking about a We're not talking about just a 42-point margin. We're talking about an 84-point swing toward Republicans, an 84-seat swing toward Republicans. That's an absolute landslide that would give the GOP a supermajority, not just for the rest of Trump's presidency, but literally for the rest of the century. This is why the Texas Democrats have skipped town. It has nothing to do with democracy. It has nothing to do with authoritarianism. It has nothing to do with representation, the people's and nothing. They've skipped town because they know the jig that they've been playing for 7 decades is up. That's why they're literally fleeing states to at least halt for as long as they can redistricting votes. They're trying to prolong the inevitable because the inevitable involves their literal demise as a viable political party. We've talked about this before as I bring this to a close here, but it bears repeating. Something very important. You might want to even just do your own little research on it, talk about it with friends, families, those who have yet to be convinced of the ascent, the rise, the inevitable rise of MAGA. Sociologists have long studied the characteristics that are exemplative of a dying social movement. So if we compare those characteristics with what the Democrats are currently experiencing, it's very clear that the days of the oldest American political party are coming to an end. I mean, there's just no way around it. I know a lot of people go, don't say that, don't say they're always going to find a way. Yeah, no, they're always going to find a way. When they did not have all of these problems evidencing themselves, when they did not have all of these symptoms evidencing themselves all at the same time, yes, they were able to come back. But when you have all the characteristics of a dying social movement, then you're dying. First and foremost, dying social movements experience a mass loss in membership. Mass loss in membership. So interest in the movement just simply begins to fade. Bottom line, just ask Stephen Colbert. Just ask CNN what happens, right? Or Don Lemon what happens when people just lose interest in you. You see a distinctive demise in association numbers. And in the upwards of 25 states that track voter registration trends by party, the Democrats are losing in every single one. Republicans are showing a net gain in voter registration in every single state, half the states in the country that track voter registration trends by political party. Over the course of the last year, the Democrats have been losing voter registration ground to the Republicans in every single swing state and in basically 48 of 50 states. There aren't any more voters. I don't know what to say. You can't be a growing, vibrant party when your voter base is hemorrhaging. It's gone. Whether it was the illegal migrants, whether it was the ballot stuffing, whatever it was, it's gone. It's not there anymore. You saw that the Massachusetts governor, borderline illiterate, said because of what Texas is doing, we're going to have to gerrymander here in Massachusetts as well. And then somebody kind of taps her on the shoulder and goes, we already did that. We're 100% Democrat represented. There's not a single, zero Republican representatives coming from Massachusetts. All their districts have already been gerrymandered. There's nothing left. There's not much left in California. There's not much left in Illinois. There's not much left in New York. And plus, they have to go through a redistricting committee, an independent redistricting committee to do that. And that redistricting committee doesn't want to do it. One of the reasons why those redistricting committees were set up, and it was in order to prevent further gerrymandering. So there's just no more votes for them. But in addition to losing membership, a dying social movement evidences a significant reduction in public attention. So simply put, the movement struggles to draw any attention to its cause, given the diminished public interest. Nobody cares in the movement anymore. And I can't help but think of that this series of just cringe political stunts, one after another, these public relations embarrassments, that you know, where the Democrats have just become the butt of all jokes, even among their own supporters. These were all just failed, desperate attempts to try to get anybody to notice them again. And then you combine that with the legacy media's dramatic audience decline and loss of influence over public perception. That has inordinately contributed to further damaging the Democrats' ability to garner any significant attention to themselves. So they lose memberships, they lose interest. Thirdly, dying social movements become bereft of any real leadership. Now, what we're seeing here, really for the first time in our lifetimes, where there is a total leadership vacuum inside the Democrat Party, with nobody there to fill it. Yet, good luck, Gavin Newsom. Give me a break. Nobody's there to fill it. That is a key characteristic of a dying social movement. A movement simply cannot survive without viable leadership that galvanizes, organizes, and effectively represents and advances the movement. That's why they've run out of money. There's nobody there to raise money. It is widely recognized, even among liberal outlets, the Democrats are completely and totally leaderless. In fact, Tim Walz, was relatively recently asked, Kamala's Cackles, the hyena's former running mate, he was asked point blank on CNN to identify who he thought the leader of the Democratic Party was. And he couldn't name a single one. Do you know what he said? He said the voters are the leaders. The voters are the head of the party, which is just another way of saying they have no leader. Stephen Colbert did that to Kamala. Now, this was the most embarrassing question that the former official candidate of a party, a presidential nomination could possibly be asked, because they are by default, whether they win or lose, they are by default the leader of the party. Mitt Romney was the leader of the Republican for the interim period after his election loss. Same with John McCain after his election loss. Bob Dole after his election loss. They are the interim leaders of the party until a new leader appears. The supposed interim leader was us. Who's the leader? Because everyone knows she's not. Everyone knows those 107 days were 107 24-hour disasters. Everyone knows that. And what did she say? Not only did she say, well, I am. She should have said that. Well, of course I am. I was the Democrat presidential nominee. I am the leader, whether we win or not. I'm the leader. No, what did she say? I don't know. We have lots of leaders, she said. To which Colbert said, well, usually, a leader is a leader, not leaders. Leaders of multiple countries, sure, but a leader of a movement is not many. And then finally, dying social movements lose all relevance in terms of viable issues. The values, the interests, the concerns that the party stands for become peripheral to the values, interests, concerns of the vast majority of the population. So this is what we're ultimately referring to when we talk about the 80-20 doom loop that the Democrats are stuck in. Where they're literally, they're planting their flags in the single most unpopular issues in the country. And there's really nothing at this point they can do about it. I mean, we've talked about what veteran political analyst Alex Castellano observed about political movements that are basically in their death throes. He makes the argument that the Kamala catastrophe was much bigger than just the end of a campaign or the loss of an election. He saw the Kamala catastrophe as the mark of the end of the Democrats as a viable political party. And I think he's absolutely right. Harris's disastrous campaign that she's then wrote a book about. I mean, just the utter narcissism. I mean, if there was ever evidence that this party is dead, it's that. Hey, read about a book of 107 days of how I lost, how I suffered the worst political defeat in modern political history. Castellano argues that Harris's disastrous campaign revealed the decaying leprous soul of the Democrats, of the Democrat Party, and what they've actually become. He's been a student of political campaigns for decades, and what Castellanos noted was that what you see in campaigns that are losing and nearing their end is they often go after, think about this, so interesting. They often go after their most radical wing. They go after the most radical things that appeal to their base, their diehard base, because they're the only ones who are showing up. They're the only ones who are donating money. They're the only ones who are involved. So these campaigns then are done trying to reach out. They've given up trying to reach the undecided voter or the milquetoast supporter of their opponent or the people sitting on the fence. Now it's just the most radical red meat for their most rabid supporters to try to galvanize them to get out to vote. And in the process, those campaigns just run out of message. They just run out of script. And then they just become who they really are. And in this case, with the case of Cackle's Kamala, the Kamala catastrophe, what we saw towards the end was the lifting of that joy, joy, joy veneer they tried to sell us in August, this time last year. It was the lifting of that joy, joy veneer that the legacy media was desperately trying to persuade us on. And once that veneer was lifted, they just exposed themselves to be who they really were in reality, which was the single most hate-filled, miserable, psychopathic campaign yet seen. And what's so key here was that none of that was a straight and intentional strategy. None of it. That's why the Kamala campaign looks so haphazard and random and so poorly improvised towards the end, with all those disastrous interviews, the Brett Baer interview, where every answer was a tirade against Trump, or the CBS 60 Minutes embarrassment with answers, again, so cringe they literally had to edit them. Trump's presidential library is going to be so beautiful, that 60 Minutes paid for wing, tens of millions of dollars that they had to pay for intentionally interfering in an election. In the end, the Democrats just simply ran out of message. And having run out of message, they were just left running on the fumes of what they were, running on the fumes of their hate. Again, as Castellanos put it, I loved, he summed it up in a single phrase. You could literally smell the decline. And he argues, and I agree with him, and I hope I persuaded you on this in today's live stream, that I don't think we're being overly optimistic here. I think this is real serious analysis. He argues that decline, that decay, that decomposition that you could smell of the Kamala catastrophe was indeed indicative of the whole of the Democrat Party. Kamala was the embodiment of what the Democrat Party has become. They're doubling down on their most radical wing. And the more they double down on that radical wing, the more they alienate themselves from the electoral consensus, hence Quinnipiac's 19% approval rating. The more they double down on the radical wing, the more they alienate themselves from the electoral consensus. So then think it through. What do these fleeing Texas Democrats truly symbolize? This fleeing the Texas Democrats from their state legislature is a symbol of the alienation and the exile that the Democrat Party as a whole is experiencing increasingly in American politics. It all turns out to be an indicator that the Democrats may be in a far more dire situation than simply being politically unpopular. I would argue it is all an indicator that this is nothing less than the beginning of the end of the Democrat Party itself. Over to you, guys. I want to hear what you have to say. Enough of me chatting and blabbering. As Josh assembles your questions, I want to give a big shout out to our good friends over at Beam Dream. If you're having a hard time falling asleep at night, and let's face it, most of us are, meet your knight in shining armor, or at least chocolate armor. I told you guys about this. I've been using Beam Dream nightly now for months. I genuinely cannot imagine my nights without it. Before Dream, frankly, I just lie awake for hours. I'm thinking about the future, the news. Maybe I'm too excited thinking about the Democrats' eventual demise, but I just can't sleep. I can't turn my brain off. But now, with Beam Dream Gang, I fall asleep. Seriously, I kid you not, I fall asleep in under 30 minutes. And I stay asleep all throughout the night. And I wake up without that foggy, sluggish feeling. Look at me. I'm on the top of my game, man. In fact, since I began taking Dream consistently, I have noticed a real difference in my focus, my mood, my energy throughout the day. Dream is made with top quality, science-backed ingredients that help you relax and get the deep, uninterrupted sleep your body needs. Seriously, I take it every night. It's become like a nightly ritual I look forward to each and every day. And unlike other sleep aids, again, there's no grogginess the next day, just clear-headed, focused energy. So sleep is something you've been struggling with. I cannot recommend Dream enough. And right now, to make it even sweeter, you can save up to 35% off with my exclusive Beam discount. Just click the link below or scan the QR code and use code Turley at checkout. Don't settle for restless nights. Try Dream. You'll feel the difference. Click on that link below right now. All right, guys, what do we got? I want to hear from you. Let me write and get my notes down so I can write down everything here for you. Davros. Do you believe French President Macron is married to a person who was born a man and now identified as a woman? Dude, freaking Candace, what are you doing to us? I have no idea. I've never even given the whole thing a second thought. Macron is pathetic in and of himself. He doesn't need something like that to demonstrate what a failure of a human he is. So I literally have never looked into it in the least, and frankly, it doesn't interest me in the least. But I do think Candace is getting herself in a little heap of trouble there. Melissa, hi, Dr. Steve. Well, he's at it again. Greasy Gavin is holding a special welcoming party for the rogue Texas Democrats here in Sacramento today and to tout his own redistricting plan. He says is putting on the ballot this November by special election. What the hell can he really get past the independent committee set up here or not? What that will remain to be seen. I don't think he can. It would require a constitutional amendment. Maybe that's what he's trying to get passed this November, but it would require a constitutional amendment. It doesn't matter. The floodgates are open. Texas is just the beginning. Texas is literally just the beginning. The floodgates are open between the new census, between the redistricting efforts that are already happening in Florida and Ohio. Now we found out in Indiana and Nebraska. And then if the Supreme Court looks like it's in the next few months or in the next session, they're going to be overturning the VRA, the Voting Rights Act. I mean, forget about it. I mean, there's nothing that there, again, there's no more. They've already gerrymandered all the districts. There's no more seats. Davros, Trump wants a mid-decade census corrected from 2020 by omitting criminal foreign invaders from the population count. But Trump was blocked by the Dominion from getting a citizenship question on the 2020 census survey. Won't they just stop this new Americans-only census again? How likely is it that Trump could get a new census before the 2026 election? New census, new districts drawn from that census seem tough by 2026. Seems like a long shot to get it all done, even by 2028. I don't know about that, Davros, perhaps, but I don't think so. So no, they're going to go. They're going to hit the Supreme Court from a different angle here. It seems to me. I don't think it was thrown out last time on its merits. I think it was a procedural issue. They're going to get around that, it seems to me, and we're going to get a census eventually. That again, even at the latest 2030. And again, keep in mind, we don't need it for 2026. We got just the redistricting efforts alone that are going to take care of that. And the possible overturning of the VRA. But in the process, the census would just solidify it. It would make it, it would basically do in one fell swoop, as it were, what these redistricting efforts and the overturning of the VRA would accomplish as well. So it's a perfect storm. Whether it works or not, you've got these two other options that each with their own integrity. And no matter what happens now, I mean, the Democrats are just on their heels and they know it. They're literally fishing for votes at this point. We're just simply doing what they've been doing for decades now. Janet, please check out Promethean Action with Barbara. Boy, yeah, I know Promethean, the British channel, right? They are amazing. Thanks for keeping us sane. Thank you, Jen. Thank you for the super chat, right? Aren't they the two British ladies, if I recall? They're wonderful. They're phenomenal. I love their coverage. Brilliant, sober, analytical. Yes, big shout out to Promethean Action. If you guys haven't checked them out, great channel. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Janet. I concur 100%. Great channel. Super sticker. Thank you. Super sticker from Ian. Thank you. And Kennard. Thank you, sir. Baja Cat, Dr. Steve, should we be concerned about the latest censorship internet ID bill being pushed here to make us like the UK, or do you feel confident the bill will die before the Supreme Court has stepped in? I'm very confident the bill does not have a leg to stand on. It's not going anywhere. Even if it were to pass, say they get the House back by just a few seats in 2026, it may pass the Democrat House because they march in lockstep. It will never pass a Republican Senate. Certainly won't pass the filibuster. So I don't think you have to worry about it. I really don't. Not at this point. If anything changes, I will be the first to let you know. I will be the canary in the coal mine. Benton, question number 1. What is your informed thoughts? Jabba the Hutt, aka Bill Barr, has shown up in a couple of investigation reports as a DC slime creature. It's always know where he has been because he leaves a slime trail. He stated that the only way to get the POTUS president of the United States was to prevent him running in 2024, was to convict him of RICO violations, which Fatah Arsfani attempted. Yeah, no, he's a scumbag. He's a slime. He's part of the, I thought he was part of the Northeastern liberal elite. Most societies, people don't like this, but it's just, there's no way around this. Most societies are run by families. Okay. We are tribal by nature. It's just the nature of the human person to gather in families and communities and tribes, as it were. And then that works thatself out racially, regionally, religiously, you name it. And our political elite are overwhelmingly dominated by families in the secular Northeast. Even the Bushes, who established an elite stronghold in Texas, are from the Northeast. George Herbert Walker Bush moved down to Texas from the Northeast. They have their home in Kennebunkport, or vacation home in Kennebunkport. He moved down there and he married Texas Oil with his connections with the CIA and the defense industry. So that's how you get this whole like Karl Rove elite there, but they're all connected. They all go to the same, their kids all go to the same, they all graduated from the same prep schools. New England prep schools. Henry Kissinger lived in Kent. He died in Kent, Connecticut, not far from where I grew up. So, and I grew up hearing about this at Yale, at Harvard, Brown, at Dartmouth. These are, and so Bill Barr is part of that group. If I recall, there was even an interesting connection. If I remember, was it Bill Barr, or it may have been his father, who was the headmaster at the prep school that if you could believe it, that Jeffrey Epstein used to teach at. If I recall, Epstein was a math teacher. I know Epstein has this weird resume, where he was a high school teacher that ended up becoming a billionaire through Victoria's Secret mogul, who gave him unprecedented access to his money. And that's how he ended up becoming a billionaire. So it doesn't make any sense, right? But he just shows you that he was hobnobbing with these elites. And Bill Barr is a part of that. Trump isn't. That's the strange thing. Trump would write checks to them and so forth to keep them, well greased, so he could build his Trump enterprises, as he fully admitted to. He says, I know how the game is played. I wrote checks to Nancy Pelosi, to Hillary Clinton. I wrote checks to everybody because they're all bought. I know they're bought and paid for because I bought and paid for them, right? So Bill Barr is part of the bought and paid for family elites, or elites of families of aristocrats that run our country, that did run our country until we, the people, push back with our avenger, Donald Trump, and now J.D. Vance, of course, who comes from Appalachia, comes from a completely different background. Marco Rubio, too. A lot of them. Kennedy's probably the closest thing to that, Robert Kennedy Jr., but he's been ostracized by the elite of his family. So he's gone rogue, as it were. But he would have been another one of the families. So the Bushes, the Rockefellers, the Kennedys, and the Barrs, they're all part of it. So yeah, you're right. You're smelling the rat big time, Benton. You got it. Medvida Loca, if all the Texas Democrat seats are vacated, can Abbott appoint all Republicans to refill them? Good question. Good question. I understood if they're vacated, the quorum shrinks. I may be wrong. I have to check on that. The quorum shrinks so that they can go ahead with legislative agenda. But that'd be very interesting if he can replace them. I don't know the answer to that. I'll have to look that up for you. Very good question. Very good question. Robo Guy, great to hear from you, my friend. Maybe Project 2025 we should be wary of. Russell Vogt, who is the co-author, and Trump put in his administration pushing censorship here right now, would not hesitate to ban games, anime, etc., etc. Trump needs to remove it now. I don't know if he can do anything like that. He may be saying stuff like that. I wouldn't worry too much about it. Robo Guy, we got to learn to win. We got to learn what it feels like to win. You're not going to get everybody agreeing with you. Everybody's going to have their own shtick, but not everyone's going to be able to enforce it. It's a whole different story. And Russell Vogt can't do anything like that. So I don't think you have to worry about it. He may be pushing for things like that. Good luck at that passing the Senate. It's not going to happen. Alan Little, while Georgie Eos under fire, are we going after the kid Alex? The old Nazi won't live forever, and he's been training the kid to take over. After all, why else would he marry into the Clinton crime family? There you go. Again, very the wedding in the Hamptons, very much part of the Soros, elite family wing. Very good, Alan. It fits in perfect with what we were just talking about before. George Soros right now is more the symbol. I think he's kind of going the way we all go, the sunset. So it is Alex, as I understand it. George Soros is the symbol still to this day. But when we're taking down Soros, or we're investigating Soros, it's good to go back to Alex. Alex, as I understand, has full control over the Open Society foundations and where that money goes. Zebra, Dr. Steve, can you define and contrast moral relativism against moral absolutes and comment on the impact each has on societies? Thanks. Yeah, I mean, just very briefly. So, let me reverse it. Traditionally speaking, morality was seen to be as transcendent. So in order for something to be truly right or wrong, it has to be right or wrong irrespective of human opinion. If it's just a matter of human opinion, then nothing is actually right or wrong. It's just a consensus. It's agreed to, but tomorrow it could change. For something to be right, there's got to be a rightness to it. In other words, it's always right. And I'm talking about, real major things, like the 10 Commandments. And in divine command theory, the notion is that morality is eternal. Morality, good and evil, right or wrong, have an eternal transcendent significance to them, that our own instantiations of right and wrong are either consistent reflections of, or they deviate from. If they deviate from it, that's called sin. Sin is, the Greek word is hamartia, and it literally means missing the mark. Whereas if we're aligned with this eternal vision of morality, then we cultivate what's called wisdom and virtue. And wisdom is understanding sort of like the divine economy of goods. And a divine economy of goods means everything is good as God created it, but not everything is good in the same order, same way. This is what J.D. Vance got into with ordered loves. So I like to explain it to my students of old that if you had a baby on a pedestal and a ham sandwich on the pedestal, and they both fell at the same time, and you rush to save the ham sandwich, that's bad. That's evil. That's wrong. Why? Not because ham sandwiches are bad or evil, but because I've dislodged my affections, my loves from God's economy of goods. Ham sandwiches are good, but babies are really, really good. So you see this in the Genesis 1 creation narrative, where everything is good, but then you get to day 6 in the creation of humanity, and then God says, and it was tov tov, and it was very good. He uses the Hebrew word for good twice, tov tov. It wasn't just good, it was good. It was really good. And so we're supposed to align our loves, our dispositions, our inclinations with this eternal economy of goods. Understanding that economy of goods is wisdom, and aligning our loves with that economy of goods is called virtue. So that's your traditional conception of right and wrong. And the argument is that nations that align themselves with this moral order to the world that we didn't invent, it's part and parcel of the eternal nature of things. All contingent temporal things in this world, including the universe itself, are ultimately dependent on something that is not contingent, that is not dependent, that is absolute, necessary, and eternal. That's the classical theistic argument for God. God derived from the old German word Gott, which means set apart from all physical, contingent, degenerating things. The universe itself doesn't have to exist. So therefore, the universe is itself dependent on something that has always existed, that is always eternal, because things that are not eternal cannot account for their own existence. And so even if the universe were around for eternity, there's nothing to stop it from disappearing. It could demise. It could fall apart. It's just physics, and physics can unravel. So there's nothing that makes the universe necessarily existent. Therefore, it must depend on something other than itself for its existence. And that other is wholly other. It is Gott. It is set apart from all other things in this universe. And that must by nature be absolute, necessary being. That is the foundation for all contingent things. Morality comes from that necessary being. And to the extent that we align the cosmos with that infinite eternal conception of good and avoid its warnings of evil, then nations flourish. That's Deuteronomy 28, for example. And that's Confucianism, that's Taoism, that's Buddhism, that's Hinduism, that's Shintoism, That's Islam. I mean, you could go everyone recognizes that if you don't have what's called cosmic piety, if you don't align your own heart and your society in harmony with the obligations that we have as being creatures in a cosmos we did not create, if you don't do that, you're in big trouble. Your society will inevitably fall. Moral relativism comes from the rejection that there is a transcendent, eternal foundation for this contingent world we're living in. Or they will say, we can't know it, because they're defining knowledge in a very truncated, very reductionist 18th century sort of scientific rationalist way that can't account for itself, for example. And so if there is no transcendent right or wrong, eternal, handed down to us in some way, shape, or form, from Mount Sinai or through meditation and Buddhist traditions or what have you, even Buddhist traditions, it's a revelation under a tree, interestingly enough. Gautama Buddha becomes the enlightened one. So there's even just this kind of tree of life, cross-like symbols behind it. Very, very similar things. If you cut yourself off from that, well, then where are you going to derive your morality from? You're going to make it up. You're going to do it by consensus. You're going to do it by elites. Elites hand it down to you. You could do it by mandates from above, like what we saw with COVID. So ironically, moral relativism just in the end just says, humans, man is the measure of all things. Humans come up with their moral systems. And then there's infinite ways they can do it. We're really big on, you get to decide what's moral for you. You get to decide your own right and wrong. You get to say, yeah, that's our liberal version. But communism had a very, very different version than that. But it's the same thing. There is no transcendent morality. We define what morality is. And not only do I think it's tyrannical by its very nature, because inevitably then morality is going to be defined by the strongest. So it's might makes right. But it's also contradictory, because moral relativism assumes that it is good for people to come up with their own notion of the good. They assume it is right for people to invent their own notion of right. You see, they're already operating with moral categories. That's what the whole idea of the image of God. And every religion has a kind of image of God notion, not exactly like the Christian one. But the image of God is this notion that we are receptors of the communicable attributes of God. God is good. And so there's a notion of good with it. God is moral. There's a notion of morality within us. God is logical. He's the ratios. He's the logos. So there's an ability to reason, to know him, and so forth. Right? God has goals. God has a telos, a purpose. So there's goals and telos in our lives. And everything that we do that we call moral or not moral is going to be a reflection of hearts that already have morality embedded within them. So we don't get to make up morality. It's already there. We just direct it one way or the other, you say. So we have to assume it's moral to make up our own morality. That we have to assume that. We're starting from there. We have to assume it's ethical to be ethical. But the only way you can actually account for that is if there's a transcendent source that defines us before we defined it. And so now the question is, we have to understand what it is so we can align ourselves with that, so we can experience our highest human flourishing. I hope that made sense. So deep stuff, very deep stuff. Very cool, Zebra. Very cool question. Stuart the Brit, Sir Lord of Turley. Thank you, sir. And thank you for the pounds sterling. Is it a worry that you all are walking into a one-party system? Is there another arising? There will. No, of course, of course. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. And so inevitably there'll be another party coming out. I just don't see how it would work any other way in our system. federally, I mean, you can, I mean, we do have areas in our, as I'm sure you have in the UK, we have areas in our nation, particularly cosmopolitan areas, that are just run purely by one party. Baltimore City doesn't have a single Republican on the city council; it's all Democrats. But then what happens? You end up getting two factions in the Democrat Party. We talk. Our conceptions of right versus left. Right, go back to the French Revolution, where the more traditionalists sat on the right side of the assembly, and the radicals, the Jacobins, and so forth, sat on the left side. But they were all revolutionaries, right? So, so you could have a single party, Republican Party, but as Elon Musk is showing, they can break off. One wing can break off really easily, and if they feel like there are issues that are not being well represented, and they see a power vacuum, they'll fill it. No question about it. So, and you're seeing it right now with the UK, with the Tories look like they're going the way of the dodo bird. It's insane. I thought it was going to be Labour first. Thought Tories would easily outlast Labour, but looks like Reform is going to crush Tories and then reduce Labour to the margins, the peripheral. And then we'll just have to see how the two-party system rearranges itself in the UK. So you've got the opposite. You've got all these parties that are coming about. Italy seems to be going through that right now, where they'll always have a multiple party system, but Brothers of Italy seem to be sort of the MAGA that's holding together Lega on one side and Forza Italia on the other. And then you just have the Social Democrats, and then the rest are very, very pro. What's their name? 5-Star. 5-Star looks like they're pretty peripheral at this point. They did win that 2018 election, if I recall, parliamentary election. Went into alliance, got into a coalition with Lega, Matteo Salvini, and then that fell apart. And then that gave that gave rise to their technocratic government. And then Giorgia Meloni and the Brothers of Italy stormed, and they haven't looked back. They just solidified their power. So it really does look like they're moving into a kind of two-party system in a sense, multiple parties, but the coalitions are so strong they might as well just be one, and it's predominantly right-wing. Looks like that's what's happening in the UK. It will, I think, happen if Nigel plays his cards right. But again, there's plenty of disagreement inside Reform. You know that. So inevitably, there's always going to be two parties. Maximilian, if liberalism is wrong, why has it been so strong? That's a good question. Let's see. Let me give that a little thought here. Liberalism is so wrong. Why? Well, I mean, you can answer that in so many ways, Let me, I could say we're all fallen, we're all sinful, we tend to be drawn to the wrong. But let me answer it in a way that that tries to be empathetic with others, or with everyone involved, including ourselves, because we're all caught up in it in our own way as well. Fish never ask how wet the water is, right? We're all creatures of our environment. And that includes an ideological environment, a political environment, a civilizational environment, and the like. And the West really did. The West blossomed through the medieval period, the Middle Ages, as they're called. The West blossomed some of the most extraordinary scientific and technological industrial inventions imaginable. The West China has a very well-known field of study trying to understand, Chinese scholars trying to understand what made the West so powerful. How did the West ascend so dramatically into the world? Remember, the UK was the empire where the sun never set upon. It was everywhere. The most remote, Pacific Islands, You would see the British flag, right? You see the Union Jack. I mean, just how is that possible? And the answer was because really of the Western intellectual tradition that always advocated and always gave priority to empirical investigation. Now, there's different theories as to why. We have always been fascinated with inductive reasoning as opposed to deductive, top-down reasoning. Inductive starts with the particular. Let's see, let me understand this pen. Let me put it under a microscope and let me see if I can piece together all the things that make up this pen. But it starts by me reducing it to its smallest bit, as it were, and then I draw from there. That's the inductive method. It's from the part to the whole. And one of the theories, because it goes all the way back to John Philoponus in the Byzantine world back in the 6th century, the inductive method, the scientific method. Most cultures, most societies were much more married to the deductive method. So they started with more abstract theological, metaphysical principles, philosophy, and worked your way down. How did we in the West start from, the most basic element of a thing and work our way out? How did we do that? And because that's what the scientia is basically, that's what science is. It's related to the word schism. You're breaking things down to their basic fundamental parts. One of the arguments, going back again to John Philoponus, is because of the incarnation in our metaphysical thinking. God, infinite eternal being, became man. He became a baby, right? And so if you want to know who God truly is, you look at the person, you look at the particular, and then you can draw from that, encounter the life of Christ, encounter the person of Christ, and then you can draw all of these extraordinary metaphysical reasons. That may be it. It seems to me it makes a lot of sense. But regardless, what that did is it helped to awaken over centuries the scientific revolution of the 18th century. Now, there's scholars who come out and say it wasn't a revolution for 1,000 years. Yeah, no, I get it. The optics, development in optics in the 11th century are astonishing. You see them in stained glass windows in cathedrals that are themselves architectural marvels, physical marvels of the world, especially with the flying buttresses and the pointed arches as opposed to the rounded arches that enabled them to build up into the sky, some hundreds of feet high. No, I agree with that. I agree that technology and science developed over time, but it reached an apex in the 18th century. And it was a century where we felt that we had arrived now at a form of knowledge where we actually didn't need kings, we didn't need princes, we didn't need bishops who supposedly had this supernatural charism that gave them a unique knowledge that we weren't privy to as lay people. And so this idea of, through scientific rationalism, we can actually open up knowledge for everyone. And that was the precursor for the great democratic revolutions here in the United States and in France. Great meaning just big, massive. The idea was that we didn't need people with a special esoteric knowledge to rule us anymore. There was a common knowledge. There was a common sense to everyone that can now be the basis for rule. And now our rulers, who have to rule in accordance with the consent of the people, they have to be able to appeal to this common knowledge, this common sense, in order to justify their policies, in order to justify their rule. They can no longer appeal to God or whatever. And so this became, hence you see the beginnings. Again, it sounds good, but that became the beginnings of what we call emancipatory politics, or more commonly, liberalism. And the idea now is, through this form of knowledge that ironically came to us through the church and through centuries of Christian culture, this form of knowledge now has enabled us to liberate ourselves. We're grown up now, as it were. We're not kids anymore. We can liberate ourselves, emancipate ourselves from old traditions and customs that we now see sort of, kind of superstitious, certainly can't be justified scientifically anymore, and they're outdated. And you know what? With science and reason, we're pretty unlimited in what we can do. And then, if you think it through, we can actually help liberate the world, because we look out on the world stage and we see how they're all still kind of trapped in their savage superstitions and knuckle dragon customs and so on. So we can go and sail the world and bring this enlightenment. And by the way, a lot of them were practicing some pretty barbaric practices. We could bring this enlightenment to them, the scientific rationalism, emancipate them from these barbaric practices, and realize civilized man internationally. That should be able to create political, economic, and harmony throughout the world, and we can actually fully realize a peaceful coexistence. That was very strong. That was very powerful, and it seemed to have, ironically, a lot of Christian backing behind it, because it was derived from a distinctively Christian way of knowing the world. And so, I want to be empathetic to people who believe. I think we all believed it at some point, because it really wasn't until the early 90s where that meta narrative really did start to falter and fall apart. And ironically, it ended up in 2 world wars and the like, because it wasn't just the West that had its version of a one size fits all, or better, it wasn't just a single one size fits all political and economic system that was derived rationally. There was only one that just came out. There were literally 3, right? So Western liberalism, Soviet communism, and Nazi fascism. Those were all 3 worldwide totalitarian, as it were, belief systems rooted in the Enlightenment, rooted in a kind of liberalism, emancipation from what had come beforehand. And they ended up like, gargantuans, titans fighting each other. And then eventually people realized that there was so much wanting. There was so much missing in that myth, because what I gave you really is a mythos. And one of them is this idea of, we don't need myths anymore, we have science. Well, that's a myth. So there's all these contradictions inherent in it that it just began to collapse under its own weight. But I would argue it was so strong because it prospered under borrowed capital, that in one sense it had a right to, because that's where it was the progeny of this, of Christendom. But then it tried to completely emancipate itself from Christendom. And that's when, scholars like we talk about Pitirim Sorokin, when he talks about the sacred societies branching off into the secular. Secular ends up becoming sort of a prodigal from its sacred source, but it always, without fail, ends up faltering and dying. Precisely very similar to what we were talking about today with the Democrat Party, because it doesn't have the sacred eternal resources for societal renewal. So it inevitably falls apart. So there you go. That's a picture of, I think, of how it ended up becoming so strong. Thanks, Maximilian. Always love hearing from you. Kevin, the House and Senate both have closed the session in a specific manner to keep President Trump from making appointments or doing work while they're on vacation again. Is this the Rhino establishment trying to look like they're working to support President Trump, but actually stabbing us in the back again? I really don't think so. I honestly don't. I think Thune is, again, the Republican Party, I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'll say it like a broken record. The Republican Party is inherently dysfunctional. It's a dysfunctional party. Like it, love it, leave it, doesn't matter. That's just the way it is. All right. All Democrats want power. All Democrats want more taxes. All Democrats want more regulations. All Democrats want to increase government. Half Republicans want to roll back government. The other half want to grow it. Half want to cut taxes. The other half want to raise it, but in a certain way. You know, half want to cut spending. The other half want to grow spending. They are an inherently dysfunctional party. Half want to bring all our troops home. Half want more troops abroad than ever. It's just, that's the nature of the Republican Party. And so what Thune has to do is he has to keep all factions happy. So that's what I think is going on. It's not the neocons are necessarily betraying us per se. That's what neocons do by nature. But we need the neocons. And by the way, the neocons do tend to come and vote because they know they need power. And so they tend to vote with us when it counts. But then that means we have to give the neocons what they want when they want it. So right now, they didn't want these appointments. Fine. He'll get them eventually. You don't have to worry about that. It's going to happen. But until then, Thune has to play this balancing act. And that, I think it's balance. It's not betrayal when all's said and done. Benton, what will replace the Democrat Party cult? Would it be some other cult which is more evil than the present one? So I have a thesis. Again, we'll see how it plays out. I think we're going to see a techno party and a traditionalist party. So the tech-trad alliance that is currently operative in the Republican Party, I think Elon already sort of forecasted it, that will eventually split. Because they are, I think, Silicon Valley and social conservatives have a lot of overlap, and MAGA is that point of overlap, but then they also have a lot of disparity as well. And that disparate tendency will take over once the Democrats are gone. They'll most likely join the technocratic party. But right now, the technocrats are scared to death of the Green New Deal. They're scared to death of the AOCs and the Mamdanis and so forth. So they're running via like J.D. Vance and Vivek Ramaswamy and Peter Thiel and Balaji Srinivasan. They're running much more towards the MAGA train. But if the Democrats demise, I think you'll see the tech-trad alliance. Now, it's still, ironically, it's still there. The tech-trad dynamic of working together is still there. They'll be the new uniparty, as it were, but they'll form in terms of two different factions. That's my thesis. That's what I think. Franz, good to hear from you, my friend. Good morning, Dr. Steve. Is there a distinction between the CBDC or Fed coin and a stable coin issued by the U.S. Treasury? No, a stable. That's a good question. I wish I had one of my crypto buddies here. Because there is a USD. There's a US dollar. Yeah, I think so. I think there's a difference, but I can't articulate it. I wish I could. You're catching me on my weakness in crypto terminology. So, if you get a Coinbase account, the first thing you buy, as if I recall when I first did Coinbase, first thing you buy are USD. So you're going to buy a digital token of a US dollar. It's the exact same thing. It's penny for penny. But then what that enables you to do is it basically just translates the dollar into the crypto space. Whereas CBDCs are going to be CBDCs are that has a lot more Fed control, as I understand it, and can be used to debank. Whereas USDs can't. They can't control USDs because they're on the blockchain in crypto. And in the current cryptography, the crypto cosmos, I guess I should call it. Whereas CBDCs invent, as I understand, a whole new cryptocosm. so as to be able to control. That's what China is doing in many respects with their social media firewall. And as I understand it, is basically blockchain. The way they're able to control what internet their population has access to is the government has created a blockchain. And then that blockchain, if you guys know how blockchain works, they're just decentralized computers, but they're spread all over, and the cryptocosm works only as far as those computers work. So rather than having Google centralize all your computer power under a single massive, like, Walmart-sized warehouse where they literally have supercomputers generating all this Google power, the computer power is distributed among multiple computers all around, but it does in a way, it can form a boundary, and that's what China's done with its internet. And as I understand, that's what CBDCs are seeking to do with a crypto token. But the stablecoin of the U.S. Treasury, as it's issued now, belongs to a completely decentralized network that the U.S. Treasury cannot control. It's beyond their control. That's what makes it work. So I'm assuming that's the difference. It's not the token per se. It's the platform that it's on. That's what I think. But you might want to double check on that. William O'Toole, Dr. Turley, good afternoon. Been meaning to raise this question, especially about the Seth Rich episode. Do you think WikiLeaks and Assange plays a part in a number of conspiracies the right has theorized about the deep state and all things Obama? Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, Assange, his call to fame in many respects was exposing the duopoly-oriented deep state, that both parties are part of this. And then, of course, this goes back to the Bush years, but it implicates Obama every bit as much, because Obama just, again, it's the same officials regardless of party. It's very interesting because I interviewed Lynn Alden, who's a Bitcoin whiz, just last week. But she's a macroeconomic expert, and she pointed out, like, if you look at budgetary expenses and income and the like at the U.S. Treasury, and I asked you, can you pick the Democrat? Just look at the data, say from the last 70 years. Can you pick the Democrat versus the Republican administration? You couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. If you just looked at the data of expenditures and income of the U.S. Treasury over the course of, say, the last 70 years, and I said to you, again, just look at the data. Could you show me where a Democrat administration came to an end and a Republican administration began? No years. Can't cheat by looking at the decade markers or anything. Could you do it? And the answer is no, you can't, because there's no conceivable difference between the two. It's the same administrators, same bureaucrats that are behind the functioning of DC, the functioning of our administrative state. And the president we elect really does not, their impact on that is negligible. And I don't necessarily know why, but anyway, Assange helped to reveal that when it came to the surveillance state, and that the surveillance state operates through secrecy, and by shedding light on to it, it can't operate anymore. So that's why they hate him and tried to destroy him. So yeah, no, I think what's a number of the conspiracies that the right has theorized about the deep state and all things Obama are true. Maybe not in all the particulars of the conspiracies, but the general gist of it is, yeah, I think it's basically right on. And Assange helped shine light on that, and he paid dearly for it. Mark the Rosebush, Dr. Drill, notwithstanding ICE, are there any indications out there that law enforcement may ever get direction support toward tough love, more severe, harsher interpretation of law that allows them more autonomy in acting against crime, kidnap a person, get shot in the act, no questions asked, kind of a castle doctrine for law enforcers? Really need these bad guys to respect law enforcers in America. No, yes, I'm with you 1,000%, especially with that respect element to it. I mean, it looks like Trump is he looks like they're starting to militarize DC. Keep an eye on that, especially over the next week. We'll be reporting on it. But it does look like National Guard is starting to come out in force in DC. I remember when we were there in DC for the inauguration, there were National Guard troops on every corner. I never felt so safe in DC. You could literally walk anywhere, and there were National Guard troops. Not tanks, what are the smaller version of tanks, what SWAT have, that are just, they were just everywhere, parked everywhere. They had their firearms. They were looking at everyone, and it was like, ooh, and you just felt great, and of course, right next to them are all the carts for the MAGA flags that you could buy there and all the vendors. It was amazing. So, yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, a big thing of it, of course, has been the Soros-backed DAs, where, law enforcement does what they're supposed to do, but then the DAs let them off with a little slap on the wrist, and then turn around and blame the victims. I just think those days are over, and we are moving much, much more toward a law enforcement mandate, and even sanctuary cities and far left cesspools are starting to, I think, beginning to feel the heat on that one from possible federal takeover. I mean, we saw it in LA, certainly with the ICE agents. Scott, why wasn't the seditious Democrat Party banned after the Civil War? Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Historically, I do not know the reasons why the Democrat Party was not banned. I think it was they tried to reconstruct the Democrat Party. So it was part of its reform, was part of reconstruction of the South. And I think they wanted to return to normalcy as quick as possible, if I recall. But I couldn't give you a definitive answer for that. I don't, that's not my realm of history or historical knowledge. Bismo, Funyuns, during the Reagan years, Buckley and Will led conservatives, and during Clinton years, Rush did. Do influencers lead conservatives now? Or are we so multifaceted we are leaderless? Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So you're talking about sort of, it seems to be sort of our mass communication network. So yeah, back in the day, I could see that William F. Buckley, George Will were spokespersons, I think, for the party. And whether it's Firing Line or ABC's This Week, yeah, you would, or John McLaughlin, the McLaughlin Group. Pat Buchanan was on there. Jack Germon of the Baltimore Sun. He wasn't conservative, but just you always had very faithful conservatives. George Will turned out to be a clown, but very faithful conservatives in the public square media, well representing conservatives in the public debate, and then helping to shape and form conservative opinion. And then Rush, no one did it like Rush, 1988, starting in 88 nationally, no one did it like Rush. Rush brought in a whole new medium with him, a new medium of communication, which is talk radio, and then unleashed an entirely new industry that's been brilliant. It's still very, very popular today. I used to do tons of talk radio. I used to do at least like 7-8 interviews a week on talk radio back in the day when I was more of a blogger and just at the beginning of my YouTube channel. Now, I just do YouTube because at Rumble and so on, because it's just There's, I get more views and more audience than going on, unless it's a huge, really big, like a Charlie Kirk thing or something like that, or Glenn Beck or Sean Hannity. But yeah, so then Rush did it. Now, definitely, it's the independent content creators. So what made Buckley, Will, and Rush similar is they all went through gatekeepers. So they all went through the old industrial broadcasting networks, as it were. Whereas what makes us unique is we bypass those gatekeeping networks in a way that email and texting bypass the old post office. So it's just opened up the possibilities for other voices to come into the mix. So I would say that it's technically known as the Network Society. It has replaced broadcast networks as the principal means of representing conservative thought in the public arena. I think that's it. And that is the leadership today. And then is there any one particular? No, there's not. I don't see there's not a Rush anymore. Rush was the pinnacle. It seemed for me. I got to meet him once back in '96 in New York City. He was just, I mean, I loved the man. There'll never be another Rush. And unlike Howard Stern, you know, it was a shock jock, his own thing, but Howard Stern waned in influence over the years. Howard Stern's career went up, and then it just clearly went down to the point where nobody even cared what the man had to say anymore. That never happened with Rush. He hit a pinnacle, he hit a summit, a peak, and he stayed there his entire 30-year career because he was just so special and so good. So all the rest of us, I think, are just carrying on his legacy in our own particular ways. But there'll never be another Rush, that's for sure. Mr. M, after I saw your most recent Ground News ad, what's your take on Joe Rogan saying Trump's gaslighting about Epstein and right outlets not covering it? Yeah, no, it's a good question. That was part of the pushback on Trump and on terms of how they originally handled it, the Epstein list, when Pam Bondi basically said they were shutting down the investigation. Ha ha, they're not. And that's the interesting thing about that, the turnaround. No, I mean, he got called out by Rogan. He got called out by Bannon, got called out by Robert Barnes is still pissed off at it, rightly so. Maybe not quite as pissed off as he is, or is kind of obsessed with it. But no, there was a lot of pushback there, and we covered it. You know, we talked about. I thought it was the biggest unforced error of the Trump administration, both first and second term, and but you know, it was. I think honestly, though, it was more a inter-Twitter spat. And it, for the vast majority of the MAGA base, it didn't matter. They really don't care. They don't give a rip about Epstein. They give a rip about the border. They give a rip about mass deportations. They give a rip about returning manufacturing and industry jobs back at home. They give a rip about energy independence. They give a rip about woke and ending DEI and crushing the Democrats at every turn. As far as they're concerned, Trump has delivered on those promises in spades. So they're happy. They don't care. And that's what right-wing media, I think, generally focused on. So I don't think it was a cover-up or anything like that. I think it was Rogan definitely being part of a very vocal pushback, blowback among the right, or among at least the dissident media against Trump's decision to close the Epstein thing down. But the vast majority of the MAGA movement, frankly, didn't care. And so most of right-wing media didn't care either. William, does Japan have any strategy to explode their population because they seem to be in a major crisis of no youth replacing the aging? No, not really. Not that I know of. I mean, they're giving incentives. If I raised my kids in Japan right now, I wouldn't have any income tax. I mean, they're giving very generous incentives in Japan, but They don't seem to be working. There are areas in Japan, small areas, where there seem to be little tiny micro baby booms. But apart from Japan kind of re-embracing its Shinto tradition, this is what the Sanseto party wants to do. That's the party that just came into third place, just out of nowhere. The Trump inspired MAGA party, Majiga party, make Japan great again. Munpa, make Nippon great again. That's what they want to see. They want to see a reinvigoration of their Shinto traditions. But apart from that, I mean, because the prerequisite, it seems, to every baby boom is religious renewal. And whenever you have religious renewal, a demographic explosion, a demographic flourishing tends to be the lagging indicator, but an inevitable indicator that comes from that. So Japan's going to have to go through that. Until they do, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. Mark the Rose, Dr. Joe, what's the latest Second Amendment related status for CC without permit and reciprocity in all states? No decision yet. Will there be one, and probable outcome? What is the CC? I'm not sure. Latest Second Amendment related status. Oh, for concealed carry. That's just had to come to my head. Because without permit and reciprocity in all states. Good question. As I understand it, Trump has put Second Amendment issues on the back burner simply because the Supreme Court's been cooperating so much with it. They're just, Second Amendment seems to be so relatively safe with the current makeup of the Supreme Court. That doesn't make it right or wrong what he's doing per se. I should say that doesn't make it right of what he's doing. I'm just saying, just in terms of the practical triage, I'd have to get back to you on that. I have to admit I've dropped the gun on concealed carry now for a while. That was a big thing. I was focusing on that. Now, what are we up to? 25 states at least. It was half the states if I came. And we're talking over 2,000 counties that are Second Amendment sanctuary counties, where sheriffs are not going to prosecute anyone if they own a gun that's been banned by their insane left-wing state assembly. So yeah, I'll have to catch up with that, Mark. I have not been on the forefront of that. El Brutus, thanks for your excellent commentary. Thank you for the super chat. Very appreciated. Robo Guy, I know I warn a lot about, but I rather get the word out because I care for this country and the freedoms. The more I inform, the more people I know, and be ready, and then we win. Yeah, no, absolutely. I have no problem. Paul Revering is I'm a fan of Paul Revering. Absolutely. We never want to be caught blindsided. Cobra Commander, thank you for the super chat. When the brawl in Cincinnati fall under Biden's anti-lynching act, his administration created to push the false white supreme agenda. So should Bonnie make it federal as a jab to the ironic? Oh, yes. Very good. LOL. Yes, it could. It could be. I mean, I think that attack was shocking to people who saw it. And a lot of people saw it. It obviously went viral. Right-wing media picked it up big time. Fox picked it up big time. The female victim, I'm forgetting her name. She's been on a number of shows. Very brave woman. That's very hard for her to do, knowing she's making herself a target again. And that just everything psychologically tells you don't do that. I think you've seen Charlie Sheen has come out on the forefront of this. Charlie Sheen he followed Benny Johnson. Benny Johnson, they are paying for her care. They're making sure she's being taken care of. I think the male victim as well. And Charlie Sheen came out and followed suit and making sure they have every financial need met. He was born and raised in Ohio, as I understand it, and or lives there now. I forgot what his connection is, but he gave a very beautiful and very passionate public encouragement to both victims, particularly the woman, and said, "We've got your back. We're going to take care of you." So I think this act awakened a sense of solidarity and serious moral outrage that that the kind of racial animosity that has been stoked deliberately by the Democrats, at least since Obama, at a federal level, is poison, and we've had enough of it. And we're gonna do everything we can to make sure that we push back against that. Now, I think so. I think now whether it could be prosecuted, ironically, under an act that's supposed to be relative, anti-white, that would be fascinating. I don't know the answer to that. That would be very fascinating, though, and ironic for sure. Davros, why the F does the Texas GOP fool around and say for every week they're gone, one more GOC? Why not just max out the map at once? I'm with you. Why even consider halfway maps that are not the GOP's top advantage? Good question. You have to ask them. That's what I said, Davros. I was like, what? Why even have a blue district? Just what? Get Jasmine Crockett and old man Al Green with a cane. Old man Al Green. Get rid of all of these nutty Democrats. They serve no purpose whatsoever than performance antics, performance outrage. Alan, could be the Libertarian Party be the one to step in the second party? Already established as some recognizable people already in various offices. Maybe. I'll be honest. We're not a libertarian nation, dude. We're just not. We've never been. Americans like limited government, but we like muscular government. We like government doing its job, and we like government getting involved when it needs to get involved. Libertarians are just very ideological. And again, it's a very modern thing. It operates with principles that just have no metaphysical grounding anymore in terms of just this one-size-fits-all system. So the way Javier Milei has been successful with it is he made it a part of Argentinian nationalism. Same with Jair Bolsonaro of Brazil. He tried to make it a part of Brazilian nationalism. We're going to unleash our economy by cutting off all of this choking, stagnating bureaucracy. So to the extent that doging things could be considered libertarian, sure, no problem. But the Libertarian Party as a whole seems to be an ideological mess, to be honest with you. And I don't see it, but it could. Maximilian, what is an identity and what is its purpose? Oh, Maximilian, I got to go quick on this. Technically, identity is positionality. So one's identity is one's position within in relation to others. So I'm a dad, right? My identity is made up of being a dad, a husband. I'm a YouTuber. I was a professor, right? I'm a scholar, book writer, cousin, son, brother. So my identity gets derived from my positionality, whether it's familial, relational, professional, financial, economic, right? Am I blue collar? Am I white collar? 1%, 99%. So your positionality determines your identity, as it were, or helps you to determine your identity. And then the purpose of identity would be, it's manifold, but the idea is, as I understand it, is it establishes the inherent relationality of the human person. It is not good for man to be alone. So our identities define our relationality, and relationality, particularly in the Christian tradition, is at the heart of what it means to be human. So we're not persons apart from our participation with others. So this is where in the Christian tradition, the Trinity is the paradigmatic foundation for our personhood. So all three persons of the Trinity are infinite, eternal expressions of, as it were, the one being God, or in the Eastern Orthodox, the Father, where the Son and the Holy Spirit proceed and are begotten and proceed eternally from the Father, and their personhood is found in their distinct relationships to one another. The Father to the Son to the Spirit to the Father, Spirit to the Son, and so on. So my humanity is actually defined by virtue of my relationship to the other. And my relationship to the other enables me to give myself to the other. As the Father empties himself and fills himself with the Son and the Spirit. The Son empties himself, fills himself with the Father and the Spirit. The Spirit empties himself and fills himself with the Father and the Son. So personhood, in Trinitarian theology, they use the word persona. Personhood is determined by relationality, and that relationality is the hallmark of one's identity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And so you and I have identities so as to enable ourselves to empty ourselves into the lives of others in order to be filled with them. Marriage being sort of the ultimate expression of that, and the birthing of children being a physical manifestation. We are filled with them so as to awaken who we're truly meant to be, which happens as a result of interaction with others. And then that gets interrupted when our identities try to control and dominate. It's the difference between love, which surrenders, and lust, which seeks to control. So there you go. There's some frames of reference to play around with. William, if Ma'am Dummy becomes New York City mayor, will Trump declare martial law or bring in National Guard, especially if NYPD resigns en masse? Do you have any poll numbers on the New York City mayor and New Jersey governor race? Thank you. I haven't been keeping up with New Jersey governor's race. I'm waiting for things to get a little bit closer. I guess certainly October we'll take a very, very close look at it. New York City's race looks like Ma'am Donnie's he's got it at this point, because the opposition is split between Cuomo and Adams and Suila. So yeah, at this point it looks like he's gonna win. And yes, NYPD has already said they're not gonna be listening to a punk ass freak like him. He's just running for class president, promising the world and steal from everybody else. It's just insane. So yeah, we'll see. I don't know how Trump will respond. He'll be very upset, that's for sure, since that's his native New York. And with that, gang, we are done. Another live stream Friday in the books. So it's the weekend. On the weekend, I'm your back porch professor. We're going to still have lots of chats about all kinds of things going on. So keep an eye out for some videos to come out over the course of the weekend, where you and I just make sure you grab whatever you want. Nice beer, lemonade, glass of wine, grab a cigar, whatever you like, but come on out to my back porch and we'll chat about all things happening in the rise of a new conservative civilizationalist age that you made possible back on November the 5th. That's why I love you. God bless, gang.